I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. And honestly, I don't know where to start because everything's been a complete mess lately. My name's Mark, and I've been with Lisa for about 7 years now. We got married 5, and honestly, I thought we had a pretty solid life. Sure, every relationship has its ups and downs, but I always believed in us. We had plans, dreams, a common future, or so I thought. At first, it was just small things that seemed off. Lisa started being more secretive with her phone, always taking calls in the bathroom or hiding her screen when I'd walk into the room. She'd get defensive when I asked who she was talking to, saying it was just work or a friend or some dumb excuse. She'd roll her eyes at me when I'd try to look at her messages, brushing it off like I was crazy. I brushed it aside at first, thinking maybe I was just overthinking things. But then little things kept piling up. One day, I noticed her phone kept vibrating late at night. I didn't think much about it. People have lives, right? But then I caught her in a lie about where she was supposed to be. She said she was at a friend's house, but I saw her car outside a different place entirely. I followed her, and what I saw chilled me to the bone. She was in a restaurant with some guy I didn't recognize, definitely not a friend from work or anything innocent. They looked cozy, physically close, and she was laughing a little too much at whatever he was saying. My stomach sank. That was the moment I felt the world tilt. I didn't know what I was seeing, but I knew it wasn't right. I watched her kiss him on the cheek when they left. It hit me like a punch. Lisa was cheating on me. I didn't even cry, I just felt numb. I think I stood there for a good 5 minutes, watching her get into his car, trying to process what I'd just seen. It was all so blatant, and yet part of me refused to believe it. I kept thinking maybe I was just imagining things, maybe she was just tired, maybe they were just friends hanging out. But the signs kept piling up. I found her messages on her phone, flirty, suggestive texts that she had completely hidden from me. She deleted most of them, but I managed to find some backups. I read her talking about plans to meet him again, about how much she hated the boring life she had with me and how she needed some excitement. She called him the only guy who gets me, and I swear, that hit harder than anything. That phrase, the only guy, it's like I was just some background noise to her real life. And here's the kicker. I work in a sensitive line of work. I've been part of a witness protection program because I was involved in something dangerous, something that meant my life was under threat from people who wanted to see me dead or silenced forever. I was told to trust the program, trust the people keeping me safe. But I guess I was wrong about that too, because it turns out my wife was in on it. She'd been talking to the handler, a guy named Rick, the one responsible for the protection. I found out she not only knew him but had been secretly communicating with him behind my back. It's crazy to think that the person I trusted most, the person I thought was my partner in everything, was actually involved in something far darker. She was planning something with him. I found emails, coded messages, plans to fake my death, all discussed as if they were just some mundane business meeting. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my supposed confidant, was part of a conspiracy to get rid of me, to help her escape this life we built. The threat inside was greater than the threat outside, they said in those messages. That's what really crushed me. I thought I was protecting her, protecting us from whatever dangers lurked in the shadows, but I was just a pawn in something bigger and far more sinister. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, about uncovering who she really was. I kept thinking, how did I get here? How did I miss all the signs? I was blindsided, completely blindsided. And now I'm stuck in this nightmare, trying to figure out what's real and what's just some twisted game she's been playing. The one thing I do know is I need to confront her, clear the air, or at least get some answers. Because if I don't, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to trust again. I don't even know if I want to. I need to tell her I know everything. But honestly, I don't even know what to say, or what I'll do when I see her face after I drop this bomb. That's where I stand, betrayed, confused, angry, and somehow deeply hurt. Because the woman I loved, the woman I married, was plotting against me all along. And that's a kind of pain I didn't even know existed. I waited a few days after I found out everything. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, I just needed time to process. It was like I was walking around in a fog, every moment feeling surreal. When I finally decided I couldn't wait any longer, I called her. I told her I wanted to talk face to face. She wasn't happy about it, but she agreed, probably because she knew I had uncovered something big. The day she came home, I felt like my stomach was in knots. I didn't even bother with small talk. I just sat her down in the living room and told her I knew about the affair, about her meetings with Rick, about her plans to fake my death. Her face was a mix of contempt and denial, typical Lisa. She tried to lie her way out of it as if she could just spin her way through everything. She said, "You don't understand, Mark. It's not what you think. Rick's just a friend. It's all been blown out of proportion." I looked at her and asked how she could lie so easily, how she could sit there and pretend she wasn't involved in some sick game. She rolled her eyes and spat back. "Oh, please, you're so paranoid. Rick's just looking out for us. He's protecting us. You're overreacting as usual." That's her favorite line, "you're overreacting," like she's the only one who's got a grip on reality. But I saw through her. I knew she was lying, and I knew she'd been planning this for a while. She kept insisting she loved me, that she never meant for things to get so complicated, that she'd been stressed, that Rick was just someone she confided in because she felt trapped. I didn't buy it, not for a second. Her words were empty, her lies transparent. I realized she'd been manipulating me, gaslighting me from the start, making me doubt myself. It made me furious at her, furious at Rick, furious at how I'd been played like a fool for years. I asked her outright, "Was any of it real? Did you ever care about me, or was I just a pawn in your game?" She looked at me with her bitchy smirk and said, "Honestly, Mark, you're so deluded. Of course I cared. But things change. You have to understand I needed more. I needed excitement, and you just weren't enough anymore." That's when I saw the true face of her selfishness. She didn't even try to deny the affair anymore. She just admitted it in her own twisted way. She told me she'd cheated, and she'd been doing it for months. That moment hit me like a freight train. All the heartbreak, all the betrayal, it suddenly turned into pure rage. How could she do this to me? How could she be so cold, so calculating? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, yet I knew I had to stay composed. I told her I was done listening to her lies, that I'd gather my things and leave. She laughed then, that nasty, bitter laugh that made my skin crawl. But here, where it gets even crazier. As I was about to walk out, she suddenly changed her tone. She said, "You don't understand, Mark. There's more at stake than you realize. Rick's not just some protector, he's part of a larger plan. If I go down, he's going down with me." That's when she revealed that their plans to fake my death weren't just some stupid affair. It was tied to her whole life being in danger. She claimed Rick was working for some secret agency, and they'd been ordered to keep us safe from threats I didn't even know existed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, the woman I trusted, was talking about danger from within the witness protection program. She said Rick's team was planning to make me disappear, for good, to keep me safe from people trying to kill me. For real. It sounded insane, like some Hollywood conspiracy, but I could see the fear in her eyes when she said it. She thought she was protecting herself, protecting us. I was overwhelmed. My mind was racing. On the one hand, I felt shattered, betrayed to my core. On the other, I was also starting to realize how deep and dangerous this whole thing was. I never signed up for a life filled with secret agents, fakes, and fake deaths. I thought I was just married to a bitchy wife who lied and cheated. Turns out I was caught in something way bigger, with stakes I couldn't even comprehend. And I was standing right in the middle of it. The thing is, I don't know whether I believe her entirely. I mean, on one hand, I want to believe she's just scared and lashing out. But on the other, I can't ignore the fact that she lied to me from day one. She knew Rick, she communicated with him behind my back, and she was part of a plan that could have ended my life. I keep asking myself if this is real or just some twisted paranoia. But deep down, I know I can't ignore the truth anymore. Not after everything I've seen and heard. I need to figure out what's real and what's just a big lie, because my life depends on it. The following days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling back to everything I'd uncovered, every lie she told, every secret message I found. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she smirked when she lied, her cold eyes when she admitted to cheating. And then I'd remember her talking about Rick, about the fake death plans, and I'd get chills. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just walk away from this mess and pretend everything was fine. At the same time, I was terrified of what might happen if I pushed too hard. My line of work had its dangers, but this was different. I was dealing with people who didn't play fair, people who could have me silenced just like that. Still, I couldn't stay passive. I had to find out what was real, what wasn't, and what her true motives were. So I started digging deeper. I remembered I had access to some of the secure channels that Rick used for his work. I figured if I could find some real evidence, I could finally understand what I was up against. I managed to hack into a few encrypted messages, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't just talk about faking my death anymore, it was plans to actually do it. Rick and Lisa had been discussing timelines, fake identities, even a way to make my disappearance look like an accident. They planned to stage it to make me vanish forever, and the worst part, she had been fully on board with it. I was furious. Not just betrayed, but manipulated, like I was some pawn in their sick game. I don't think I'd ever felt so angry in my life. This was beyond just a cheating wife. It was a conspiracy to erase me, to get me out of their way so they could go on with whatever twisted plans they had. I realized she'd been lying to me for years about everything, about her feelings, her loyalty, her very identity. She was capable of such deception, and I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. I knew I needed outside help. I couldn't confront her again alone, not with her lies and Rick's involvement. So I reached out to an old friend, someone I knew who worked in security and had connections to the right places. I told him everything about the affair, the fake death plans, Rick, the threats. I needed someone who could help me get to the bottom of this without putting myself in danger. Thankfully, he believed me and promised to help me gather more solid evidence and to keep me safe. While I was waiting for his advice, I started planning my next move. I didn't want to just run away or divorce her and be done. I wanted to expose everything. I needed proof that couldn't be denied, something I could show to the authorities if it came to that. The idea of her getting away with murder, literally or figuratively, made me sick. I also knew I had to be careful. If Rick or someone from her side found out I was onto them, I could be in serious danger. Then out of nowhere, things got even more confusing. I received an anonymous message on my phone warning me to back off, that I was meddling in something I didn't understand. The message was vague but threatening enough. It said, "Stop digging, Mark, or you'll regret it." I felt a cold sweat break out. Who was watching me? Was it Rick? Was Lisa involved? Or was it someone else altogether? It was a reminder that I was playing with fire, and I had to be smarter if I wanted to survive this. In the midst of all this chaos, Lisa tried to act normal, or at least as normal as she could. She called me all the time, acting sweet, trying to get me to drop my suspicions, saying she loved me, that everything was fine. But I could see through her bullshit now. Her eyes, her tone, she was panicked, trying to cover her tracks. I knew she was hiding something big. I just didn't know how deep it went. I also couldn't ignore the fact that she kept lying about Rick. She insisted he was just a friend, just someone looking out for her, but I knew better. I had seen the messages, the plans. I felt like I had to watch my back constantly because I was caught in a web of lies and danger. Every time I thought I was getting close to the truth, another curveball was thrown at me. It was like playing a game I couldn't win. Despite all of this, I refused to give up. I had to find out the full story, even if that meant risking everything. I couldn't live in fear, not knowing whether I was about to be taken out or if I was just paranoid. I knew I'd need to act soon before they decided I was a liability. The stakes had escalated so much that I was no longer just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting for my life. Everything I thought I knew about Lisa, about her loyalty, about who she really was crumbling fast. But I was determined to find the truth, no matter what it cost me. The more I dug, the deeper the rabbit hole went. I started to piece together snippets from encrypted messages, covert meetings, and whispers of a larger operation. Rick wasn't just some handler putting safety first. He was embedded in a shadowy network, one that apparently had the power to wipe out anyone who got in their way. That's when I realized that Lisa's betrayal was only part of a much bigger picture. She wasn't just cheating, she was involved in something dangerous, something that could get me killed if I wasn't careful. I kept seeing her act nice, pretending to care, but I knew better now. Every smile she gave me, every "I love you" was a facade. She was trying to keep me calm, maybe even trying to manipulate me into thinking everything was fine. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. The truth was out there and I was going to find it. One night, I decided to set a trap. I knew Rick would be meeting Lisa again, probably to finalize whatever they had planned. I managed to sneak into the place they were supposed to meet, hiding in the shadows. I had a small recording device, just enough to catch some real evidence. I waited for them to arrive, heart pounding in my chest, when Rick showed up. I was stunned to see how calm and confident he was, like he'd done this 100 times. Lisa was right behind him, looking nervous but still trying to appear in control. They exchanged words I couldn't hear at first, but then I heard snippets. Rick was talking about timing, about the final steps. Lisa's voice was shaky but determined. They discussed how they'd make it look like an accident, how the outside threats were too dangerous now, and how I was a liability. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, the woman I loved, was planning my murder, or at least my disappearance, with someone I trusted to keep me safe. It was like my entire world was collapsing. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. As soon as they parted ways, I stepped out of my hiding spot and confronted Lisa. She saw me and froze. Her face turned pale, and for a moment I thought she was going to lie her way out again. But I didn't give her the chance. I told her I had everything on tape, proof of her involvement in this conspiracy. Her eyes flashed with anger and fear. She tried to deny it at first, but I showed her the recording. Her face twisted in rage, then guilt, then pure defiance. She snapped, "You don't understand, Mark. Rick's protecting us. You're just paranoid. This is all a setup, a government thing you don't get involved in." But her voice was trembling and I could tell she was losing her composure. I asked her what the hell she was doing, how she could betray me like this. She spat back, "You're so naive. You always thought we had a future, but I'm done pretending. I wanted out, I wanted a way to leave this mess behind. Rick's the only way, and if you get in the way, you'll get hurt." That moment, something shifted inside me. I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife anymore. She was a dangerous liar, a person capable of orchestrating her own husband's death for her own survival. I felt sick. The betrayal wasn't just about infidelity, it was about life and death. I knew I had to leave, get help, and expose everything before they decided I was too much of a liability. I told her I was done playing her game. I told her I'd turn everything over to the authorities, that I'd make sure Rick and her were held accountable. She looked furious, screaming that I'd ruin everything, that I didn't understand what I was getting into. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I'd seen enough. I'd heard enough. My trust was broken beyond repair, and I knew I had to get out now, before they decided to silence me permanently. I managed to slip away that night, with the recordings and enough evidence to blow the whole thing open. I knew I couldn't stay near her, not when she was capable of lying, cheating, and killing just to cover her tracks. I reached out to the same friend I told you about earlier, told him to get me out of town, to help me go into hiding until I could figure out the next steps. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, a conspiracy so deep I didn't even know who I could trust anymore. Now I sit here, trying to make sense of everything, wondering what's real and what's just a cover-up. I'm terrified of what might happen next, but also relieved that I finally have some proof. My wife was more than just a cheating bitch. She was a pawn in something much darker. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from this, but I do know one thing. I'll never trust her again. And I'll be damned if I let her or Rick get away with destroying my life. The days following my escape were a whirlwind. I managed to get out of town with the evidence I had collected, enough to blow the lid on their entire operation, or so I thought. I stayed in a safe house, under the protection of my friend's contacts, while I tried to piece everything together. The adrenaline kept me going, but underneath it all I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and paranoid as hell. I felt like every shadow, every noise could be someone watching me, ready to silence me permanently. I kept replaying that night over and over in my head. Lisa's face, her cold eyes when she lied and then when she snapped at me. Rick's calm demeanor when he arrived. The way he looked at her with that no-nonsense attitude, like he was used to pulling off these kinds of stunts. It all made me realize how deep this conspiracy went. They weren't just some love-struck lovers. They were part of a dangerous network, people who could easily kill to cover their tracks. I had to be careful. I knew that once I exposed everything, they wouldn't just let me walk away. My first move was to contact a journalist friend I trusted, someone who had experience with exposing corruption and covert operations. I sent her the recordings, the encrypted messages, everything I had. I told her I was in danger and needed her help to bring this to light without putting myself at further risk. She was hesitant at first, but when I explained the gravity of the situation, she agreed to help. She promised to look into it discreetly and to keep me updated. Meanwhile, I kept my eye on Lisa's social media, just to see if she was trying to cover her tracks or if she was panicked enough to slip up somehow. To my surprise, she kept posting about her new beginning, as she called it. She was trying to act innocent like she'd done nothing wrong, posting pictures of herself smiling, pretending everything was fine. It made me sick. I knew better now. I knew she was lying through her teeth. One morning, I woke up to an unexpected visitor. It was a guy I didn't recognize, tall, muscular, with cold eyes. He said he was from the agency and that I needed to cooperate if I wanted to stay alive. I could feel the threat in his voice. I realized this wasn't just a game anymore. I was dealing with real, dangerous people. They wanted silence, and they were willing to do whatever it took to keep their secrets safe. I knew I had to stay one step ahead. I started planning my next moves, how to get the evidence to the right authorities, how to stay hidden, and how to protect myself from retaliation. I couldn't trust anyone anymore, not even the police. I'd seen how corrupt and compromised the system could be when it came to protecting people like me in these secret worlds. I had to rely on my instincts and the few trusted allies I'd managed to find. That's when I made the decision to go into hiding for a while. I couldn't risk Lisa or Rick tracking me down, or worse, having me eliminated. I arranged for a safe spot, out of state, where I could lay low. I knew I'd be under surveillance, probably from both sides, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away and figure out my next step. The thought of losing everything I once believed in was overwhelming, but I couldn't pretend any longer. My life was now intertwined with secrets I didn't understand and dangers I couldn't see. I also started to wonder about the bigger picture. Who else was involved? How many people in the government or law enforcement might be in on this? I had to be cautious because I knew Lisa's lies weren't just about her cheating. They were about a cover-up I hadn't even begun to scratch the surface of. Every new piece of information made me realize how tangled this web truly was. I was caught in a game of deception, with stakes higher than I ever imagined. All I could do now was wait and trust my instincts. I had to stay alive long enough to figure out what came next. I knew I couldn't turn back, not after everything I'd learned. But I also knew I wouldn't let them win. I'd expose the truth no matter the cost. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. It was about justice, about making sure these people couldn't keep hiding in the shadows. Because if I didn't do it, no one else would. And I refused to let this all go quietly into the night. Now, sitting here in this safe house, I realize just how much my life has changed in such a short time. I used to think I knew what betrayal looked like. Someone lying, cheating, sneaking around behind my back. That pain was deep, but it pales compared to the chaos I'm dealing with now. Lisa's betrayal wasn't just about infidelity. It was a window into something dark, something that threatened to consume everything I thought was real. I've been betrayed by the woman I loved, yes, but also by the system that I trusted, by the very people whose supposed job was to keep me safe. I handed everything over to the authorities, and I've seen enough to know they're not always the heroes they pretend to be. Still, I believe exposing the truth was the right move. I got the recordings out, the encrypted messages, and enough evidence to make their world crumble. I know Rick and Lisa will try to cover their tracks, but I've done my part. I've gone into hiding not because I want to run, but because I have to stay alive long enough to see justice done. Honestly, I feel a mixture of relief and despair. Relief that I finally uncovered what was really happening. My wife's true face, her dangerous plans, the covert operations I never knew existed. But also despair because I now see how fragile everything was. The trust I had in her, in the system, in even myself shattered. It's like I've been living in a nightmare where nothing is what it seemed, and every person I thought I knew might be capable of unimaginable things. What has stuck with me most is the realization that sometimes the threat inside is greater than the one outside. I had to face it head on. My wife's lies, her involvement in life-threatening schemes, her willingness to see me dead to save herself. It made me question everything I believed in. How do you trust anyone after something like this? How? Do you rebuild what's broken? Honestly, I don't have all the answers, but I do know I won't let her or Rick win. Not by silence or secrets or threats. I've learned that betrayal isn't always obvious. Sometimes it wears a pretty face, hides behind lies, and whispers sweet nothings while plotting your downfall. It took me too long to see through Lisa's mask, but I finally did. And I also learned that in the end, the truth is the only thing left that can set you free, even if that truth comes at a terrible cost. So I walk away from all of this with one clear message. Trust is fragile, and not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Sometimes, the biggest threats are the ones you never see coming, hiding right in your own life. But if you're brave enough to face the hard truths, even the darkest secrets can be brought into the light. And no matter how deep the betrayal, you find strength you didn't know you had, strength to survive, to fight back, and to rebuild. I don't know what the future holds now. Maybe I'll never fully recover from this, maybe I will. But I do know one thing. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to let her or Rick or anyone else control my life anymore. I'll keep fighting, keep exposing, keep living because that's the only way I know how to turn this nightmare into some kind of victory. This is my story, raw, honest, and unfinished. And I'll live with the scars of it, but I won't let it define me.